The abandonment, the zealothy were dying, and the galaxy watched from the observation deck of the council station. Ambassador Maria Chen pressed her palm against the cold, transparent window. Beyond the barrier, she could see the holographic display, showing real-time footage from the zealothy homeworld. Cities that had stood for 10,000 years crumbled under orbital bombardment. The purple skies that once inspired their greatest poets now burned orange with fire and death. The Dominion Empire had come for them 3 weeks ago. No ultimatum, no negotiation, just raw conquest dressed in the language of manifest destiny. The zealothy, a peaceful species known for their mathematics and music, had no chance against the Dominion's war machine. Their defense fleet, what little existed of it, had been vaporized in the first 6 hours. Chen turned from the window as the Council of Stars continued their debate. 57 species represented, 57 voices, and not one speaking for intervention. The Altarians, with their crystalline bodies catching the light, argued about trade route disruptions. The Morgoth Collective droned on about non-interference protocols. The elegant Sylphery worried about setting precedents. The zealothy situation is unfortunate, Ambassador Krytok of the Dominion said. His forearms folded in what Chen had learned was their gesture of finality. But they chose to resist integration into our protective sphere. The consequences are their own. Chun's jaw clenched. Protective sphere. That's what they called slavery now. The Council Primarch, an ancient being from the First Federation, raised one weathered tentacle. The matter is settled. The Council will not intervene in what is clearly an internal dispute within the outer territories. The zealothy are not full members, merely associates. We have no obligation. Chen thought of the zealothy children she'd met during the cultural exchange last year. They'd taught her their numerical music, notes that solved equations, while creating harmony. One little girl, barely reaching Chun's waist, had given her a crystal that sang prime numbers when touched. That girl was probably dead now. Chen stood, her movement drawing eyes from across the chamber. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 7 years. They were still the newcomers, the primitives, who'd barely managed fusion power, when the Sylphery found them. Speaking out of turn could cost Earth its provisional membership, its access to trade, technology, everything they'd gained. But Chen thought of something her grandfather had told her before she left Earth. He'd survived the water wars of 2089, when half the world had turned its back on the other half. Maria, he'd said, there comes a moment when staying silent makes you complicit. When that moment comes, you'll know. This was that moment. Earth requests the floor, Chen said, her voice cutting through the murmur of alien dialects. The Primarch. 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of surprise. Ambassador Chen, Earth has no standing to... Earth requests the floor, Chen repeated, louder this time. As a provisional member with observation rights, I invoke Protocol 7. Silence fell across the chamber. Protocol 7 allowed any member, even provisional ones, to make a single statement on any matter, but invoking it carried a price. If the Council deemed the statement frivolous or offensive, the member could face censure or expulsion. The Primarch's skin rippled with displeasure. Proceed, Ambassador, but choose your words carefully. Chen walked to the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of dozens of alien gazers. She pulled out her communication device and opened a direct channel to Earth Command, broadcasting her words to both audiences. 70 years ago, she began, My species nearly destroyed itself. We fought over resources, ideology, patches of dirt. We built weapons that could crack continents and poisoned our own air. We came within 17 minutes of total nuclear annihilation. 17 minutes. She paused, letting that sink in. Do you know what saved us? The chamber remained silent. One person, one individual who chose to disobey orders, who refused to launch missiles despite every protocol demanding it. He believed the alert was false, and he was right. But even if he'd been wrong, his choice to preserve life over following rules saved billions. Chen's voice grew stronger. That man died poor and unknown to most of my world, but he taught us something the Council seems to have forgotten. Sometimes the right choice isn't the legal one. Sometimes obligation comes not from treaties or membership status, but from something deeper. Kryotok's mandibles clicked in agitation. Earth has no military capable of— No, Chen agreed. We don't. Our entire fleet is 12 ships, half of them converted cargo haulers. The Dominion has thousands. It would be suicide. Then why— The Sylphery ambassador began. Because, Chen said, pulling up her own holographic display 40 minutes ago. Captain Anna Rivera of the cargo ship Remember Tomorrow broke through the Dominion blockade of Zelathi Prime. She's evacuating civilians, priority to children, and medical cases. The merchant vessel Stockholm Run is 30 minutes behind her. The research ship Carl Sagan has dumped its scientific equipment to make room for refugees and is entering the system now. The chamber erupted. The Dominion ambassador's roar shook the walls. This is an act of war. Earth will burn for this. Chen met his 6 eyes without flinching. Perhaps. But those are not military vessels, Ambassador. They're civilians acting on their own conscience. Earth's government didn't order this. It was technically true. President Martinez hadn't ordered it. He'd simply mentioned in a public address that any Earth citizen who felt compelled to provide humanitarian aid was free to do so, and that Earth's military would of course protect its civilians from any aggressive actions against them. A thin distinction, but in galactic law, distinctions mattered. Humans are insane, the Altarian ambassador chimed, his crystalline form resonating with disbelief. No, Chen replied. Humans remember. We remember what it's like to be alone, to be desperate, to watch the world burn while others look away. We remember because it happened to us, over and over throughout our history. And we remember those who helped when help seemed impossible. She turned to address the full council. The Zelathi taught us their mathematics when we could barely understand. Basic galactic standard. They shared their music when we had nothing to offer in return. They voted for our provisional membership when others called us too violent, too primitive. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but the chamber's acoustics carried it to every corner. Earth remembers its debts. The Primarch's tentacles writhed in what Chen recognized as deep thought. Ambassador Chen, you understand that Earth cannot stand against the Dominion. Your 12 ships. 17 now, Chen interrupted, checking her device. The colony ship New Horizon has turned around. 3 mining vessels just volunteered, and she paused, reading the latest update that hospital ship Florence has entered the system with a full medical crew and supplies for 20,000. Asterisk, your people will die for nothing, Krytok snarled. The Zelathi are finished. You merely delay the inevitable and earn the Dominion's wrath. Chen thought again of her grandfather, of his stories about standing in bread lines during the worst, of the water wars, sharing what little he had with strangers because, as he'd said, hunger makes us all family. Maybe, she admitted, but they won't die alone, and that's not nothing. Her communicator chimed. Another update. Chen's throat tightened as she read it. Captain Rivera has made contact with the Zealoty resistance. They're establishing an evacuation corridor. She's transmitting on all frequencies. Chen amplified the signal through the chamber's systems. Rivera's voice, steady despite the sound of explosions in the background, filled the space. This is Captain Ana Rivera to any vessel capable of receiving. I'm nobody special. I haul cargo between Earth and Lunar Colony. But today, I'm here because someone needs to be. The Zealoty have children who deserve to grow up, artists who deserve to create, and dreams that deserve a chance. If that's not worth fighting for, then what is? Any vessel, any species, any conscience that agrees, we could use the help. If not, then at least remember us. Remember that humans stood when standing mattered. Rivera out. The transmission ended. The chamber remained silent for 37 seconds, the longest 37 seconds of Chen's life. Then, impossibly, a voice spoke up. Ambassador Three Waves of the Aquarii, who hadn't said a word in any council session for 2 years, rose from her aquatic environment pod. The Aquarii medical frigate, Depths of Compassion, requests permission to provide humanitarian assistance to the Zealoty refugee effort. The Primarch's 3 eyes widened. Ambassador Three Waves, the humans are correct. Three Waves interrupted, her translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent determination. Obligation exists beyond law. The Aquarii, remember when we were drowning in our own poisoned seas? The Zealoty sent us their purification technology freely. We will not forget. Another voice, then another. The Farron announced 2 cargo ships changing course. The diminutive Pixarii offered their swift courier vessels for evacuations. Even some Silphery, breaking with their delegation's official position, declared individual ships would assist. Kreetok rage was palpable. You fools, you will all burn. The Dominion will... The Dominion will do what it always does, Chen said quietly. Take what it wants through force. But today, maybe, it learns that some things can't be taken. Some things can only be earned or lost. And respect, Ambassador, is one of them. Asterisk, the stand Captain Ana Rivera had seen death before, but never on this scale. The surface of Zealoty Prime looked like a masterpiece that had been thrown into a fire. Their cities, built from living crystal that grew in harmony with their mathematical principles, were shattered into glowing fragments. The atmosphere itself seemed to weep, ionized particles from the bombardment creating an aurora of mourning across the purple sky. Captain, her navigation officer, James Park, called out, his voice tight with control. 3 more Dominion cruisers just jumped in system. They're moving to intercept. Rivera gripped the edges of her command console. The Remember Tomorrow was never meant for this. Her cargo hauler had minimal shields, no weapons worth mentioning, and a hull that could be punctured by a particularly aggressive piece of space debris. Against Dominion war cruisers, she might as well be flying paper. Time to evacuation point, she asked. 7 minutes if we push the engines past Redline, then push them. The ship groaned as Park complied, the aged engines screaming their protest. Through the viewscreen, Rivera could see the other human vessels spread across the system like dots of defiance against the dark. The Stockholm run was already taking fire, her captain performing evasive maneuvers that no cargo ship should be capable of of the Carl Sagan had deployed every probe and satellite she had, creating a sensor cloud to confuse targeting systems. But it was the Florence that made Rivera's throat tight with emotion. The hospital ship had positioned itself directly between the Dominion fleet and the largest evacuation site, broadcasting on all frequencies that she was a medical vessel, protected under 7 different galactic conventions. The Dominion's response was a plasma bolt that carved through her port section, yet the Florence held position, even as she bled air and lives into the void. Incoming transmission from the surface. Communications Officer Lisa Wong announced, "It's the Zealoty resistance leader." The screen flickered, revealing a Zealoty whose scales had lost their natural iridescence, dulled by ash and exhaustion. "Captain Rivera, I am Harmonic Prime Silas. Our calculations show only 40% of the evacuees will reach your ships before the Dominion forces arrive." Rivera did quick math in her head. They had 7,000 Zealoty moving toward evacuation. Points. 40% meant over 4,000 would be left behind. Not acceptable. We need alternatives. There are none. We have calculated every variable. Then calculate new variables, Rivera snapped, then caught herself. "Sorry, it's just, there has to be something." A new voice crackled over, "Comes. Captain Rivera, this is Captain Eric Johansson of the Stockholm run. I've got an idea, but you're going to think I'm crazy." "Eric, crazy is all we've got left. The Dominion ships are maintaining standard attack formation, keeping their heavy shields forward. But those shields create a sensor shadow behind them. If we could get something small and fast through their formation," Rivera understood immediately, "we could hit their supply ships in the rear, force them to split their attention." "Exactly. But it would be a one-way trip for whoever goes." Before Rivera could respond, 3 more voices chimed in simultaneously. The crew of the mining vessel Rock Bottom, the courier ship Mercury's Dream, and, impossibly, a private yacht called Tuesday's Child all volunteered. Rivera wanted to object, to find another way, but the numbers were absolute. Mercury's Dream, you're the fastest. Can you carry explosives? "Captain, we're carrying something better," the young voice of Mercury's pilot replied. "Mining charges from Rock Bottom, and Tuesday's yacht owner happens to collect vintage Earth weapons. We've got 3 nuclear warheads from the 2090s, still functional. Nuclear weapons had been banned in space combat for over a century on Earth, and the galactic community considered them barbaric. But barbarism seemed appropriate when fighting for survival." "Do it," Rivera ordered. "Everyone else, we create a corridor. I don't care if we have to link our ships hull to hull. Those evacuees are getting through. What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as either humanity's finest moment or its most foolish, depending on who told the story." The human ships, 17 in total now, formed something that hadn't been seen in space combat for generations. A line, not a tactical formation, not a defensive sphere, but a simple line between the Dominion fleet and the evacuating Zealoty. It was primitive, tactically unsound, and absolutely insane. It was also absolutely human. The Florence, despite her wounds, anchored one end. The Remember Tomorrow took the other. Between them, cargo haulers, mining ships, and research vessels locked themselves into position with magnetic grapples and docking clamps, creating a wall of metal and determination. "This is Captain Anna Rivera to the Dominion fleet," she broadcast. "You want the Zealoty. Come through us first." The Dominion response was immediate and brutal. Plasma fire, kinetic rounds, and energy beams lit space like a deadly fireworks show. The human ships shuddered, buckled, began to break, but they held. And while they held, while the galaxy watched humanity's patchwork fleet absorb punishment, that should have vaporized them in seconds, something extraordinary happened. The aquaried depths of compassion slid into the line, her advanced shields extending to cover the damaged Florence. 3 Farron cargo haulers took position behind. The human ships, using their tractor beams to literally hold damaged sections together. A squadron of Pixari coursers began strafing runs on the Dominion flanks. Tiny pinpricks that did little damage but demanded attention. Ambassador Chen, watching from the council station, saw the moment the tide turned. It wasn't when the Mercury's Dream detonated her nuclear payload in the middle of the Dominion supply convoy, though that spectacular explosion certainly helped. It wasn't when Zelaphi ground batteries, inspired by the stand above them, began coordinated fire on Dominion landing craft. It was when a Dominion cruiser, the inevitable Victory, stopped firing. Her captain, Crevel, broadcast on an open channel. I joined the fleet to conquer worlds, not to slaughter those who protect the helpless. The humans show more honor in their sacrifice than the Dominion has shown in its entire history. The cruiser turned away from the battle, her guns silent. 2 more Dominion ships followed, then 5, then a dozen. Kreotok's rage-filled orders to fire on the deserters were ignored. The Dominion fleet, faced with an enemy that wouldn't break and their own crew's crisis of conscience, began to fragment. "Captain," Park said, his voice thick with emotion, "the evacuation is at 90%. We've almost got them all." Rivera looked at her damage control board. The Remember Tomorrow was being held together by emergency force fields and prayers. Half her crew was injured. The Florence had lost a third of her medical staff when her port section was hit. The Stockholm run was venting atmosphere from 17 hull breaches, but they were still there, still standing. "Incoming priority transmission from Earth Command," Wang announced. President Martinez's face appeared on screen, his expression grim but proud. "Captain Rivera, all Earth vessels, you've made your point. The Council has voted. The Dominion invasion has been declared illegal. A joint fleet is en route. Hold for 10 more minutes, and you'll have the entire Galactic Alliance behind you. 10 minutes. Rivera looked at her crew, saw the exhaustion. The fear, the determination. "We'll hold for as long as the Zelathi need us, Mr. President. That's what humans do." The last evacuee, a Zelathi elder, carrying what looked like a crystalline seed containing their cultural archives, reached the Carl Sagan just as the Alliance fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 117 ships from 23 species, all answering the call that humanity had started. The Dominion fleet, what remained of it, retreated without firing another shot. Later, much later, when historians tried to understand how a species that had barely achieved interstellar flight had changed the fundamental nature of galactic politics, they would point to various factors: humanity's irrational capacity for empathy, their stubborn refusal to accept impossible odds, their strange ability to inspire others through action rather than words. But Captain Ana Rivera, recovering in a Zelathi medical facility while her ship was rebuilt with technologies humanity could barely dream of, had a simpler explanation. She told the documentary crew who asked her why humans had risked everything for strangers. "Because once, we were the ones drowning. We were the ones abandoned. We were the ones the universe forgot. And we promised ourselves that if we ever had the chance, we'd be better. Today, we kept that promise." The Zelathi, in their methodical way, calculated the odds of their survival without human intervention, 0.003%. They calculated the odds of human survival after defying the Dominion, 0.007%. They calculated the odds of the galaxy uniting behind humanity's example, statistically impossible. But humans had never been good at math. They'd always been better at doing the impossible when it mattered. The new galactic order that emerged from what became known as the Stand at Zelothi Prime was different. The Council of Stars added a new principle to their charter, written in simple Earth standard. The strong protect the weak, not because of law or treaty, but because it is right. Ambassador Chen, promoted to Earth's permanent representative with full voting rights, kept a small crystal on her desk. It sang prime numbers when touched, a gift from a Zelothi girl who had survived because humans remembered how to stand when standing mattered. And in the vast darkness between stars, on shipping routes and colony worlds, in council chambers and marketplace gossip, a phrase began to spread. Not in Earth Standard or Galactic Common, but in the universal language of respect. They stood with us. For humanity, it was enough. Asterisk.